Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to take a look at a series that I needed to revive and also finish, the daily tasks and special tasks lineups for each individual nation. So of course, we're going to be looking at China Rank 2 today, which can only do the first daily task, but the point of this series is to try and help new players get a bit of a feel more for the game. So if you go and look back through my older videos of this series, the playlist will be in the description below. I've already done USA, Germany, USSR, Great Britain, and Japan. So the whole idea is that there's a few rules in this series. So first of all, for those that are curious, there is going to be no gameplay. So if you are one who likes gameplay, this ain't the video for you, I'm afraid. Unfortunately, because yeah, the whole point of this is to not be a lineup showcase with gameplay. This is to be more in-depth about each vehicle and obviously cover them in that regard. So, rules of this series. For those that are new to the channel, don't remember this series because obviously it was about a year ago, and also those who are just curious in general. Rule number 1, no premiums. This is because I don't want new players forking out for money on tanks, specifically because there's a Chinese M4A4 that's better than this one, but only by a little bit, but still, we'll cover that. I don't want new players forking out money straight away just to get a lineup. No, that's not part of why I do this series. Rule number 2. There's got to be at least one medium tank, one tank destroyer, and one light tank at the bare minimum for like vehicles that you would spawn typically first. Then, of course, there has to be at least a good AA that can do its job, and of course, 2 planes. Now, we'll get to why there's a rank 3 plane here in a moment, but of course, yeah, that is something we'll cover when we get to it, because obviously China doesn't have really many good rank 2 options for CAS, so I'll get to that at some point. So first of all, let's take a look at the Chinese M4A4. This is a solid tank. It's one of those tanks that is it's a jack of all trades, master of none. So what I mean by that is it can do pretty much everything you ask of it, but it won't excel in everything. So it will get around the battlefield decently okay. Its armor is decently okay. Its gun is decently okay. But it doesn't excel in anything, which is sort of just the trademark of the Sherman, to be brutally honest. And because this is an M4A4, you do have extra plating around the sides and everything. Obviously, you do have a slightly different engine, which is a little bit weak stock, and it can be very underwhelming. But once you get it spaded, this thing's not too bad. And of course, the gun being the 75mm M3, it's an excellent gun. And with a 5.3 second reload rate on my current crew, 5 seconds aced, that's pretty solid. And obviously, we'll get to the shells in a moment. But the turret traverse is very good, the mobility of the tank is very good, other than its reverse rate. The shells it has access to, especially when you get M61, is also very good. It's one of those tanks, like, you can pretty much just throw it into a matchmaker, and it will do the job for you. It won't, as I said, excel in everything, but it's one of those tanks that can just do pretty well. If you manage to get this thing hull down as well, the turret front, or the gun mantlet is really good. Obviously, if they know their weak spots, they can just shoot right here. But not many people know about these weak spots. But, well, unfortunately, I've just spoiled it. But because that was where the electronic turret traverse was actually put into the tank. So they had to weaken the armor there to actually fit it in and everything. So just bear that in mind if you do play this tank hull down. This is a weak spot and it's somewhat well known. But like I said, the tank is just overall very good for a new player, and it will do the job all the way up to 4.7. It'll obviously struggle against some 4.7s like the KV-1 ZIS-5 and other tanks like that, but it can deal with them. It can deal with pretty much anything you throw in front of it at 4.7 if you get a max up tier. But if you can't, that's where your tank destroyer comes in. This is the Chinese M10 GMC. So this is a tank destroyer that actually had a bit of a nerf. I think the French one did as well. Might be wrong about that. I think it's just the Chinese one. And that is, you don't get the extra track links on the front. So if I go to modifications of the Chinese M10, there's no extra track armor option here, or add-on armor. But if I quickly pull up my American M10, which is just here, and go to modifications, here's the add-on armor, which is this load of track links on the front. Now, that does affect the vehicle's survivability a little bit, but it's nothing too major. Generally, if you're hitting an M10 that's not the turret, you're probably dead anyway. especially around the sides, which are only 19.5. Now, of course, the Achilles heel of this is the turret traverse. It's very slow. But you're not playing this thing as a CQC, close quarters combat, for those that don't know what that means. You're not playing it for that. You're playing it as a sniper. You have the 76mm M7 cannon, which can punch through anything that you meet. And even though this is a 3.3 vehicle, it'll still cleave right through a 4.7 tank with very little issue. I've even seen players up there in M10s to round about 5.3, 5.7, and it still does a good bit of work. Obviously, the armor, as you can tell, is not very good, but on the turret front, it's pretty good, because you have the turret face, and you have the cannon breech protecting your crew. Now, of course, I'm sorry to ruin you M10 lovers' weak spots, but there is actually an unknown weak spot for a hull down M10. First of all, these little turret cheeks. They're hard to hit at long range, because obviously this part will just ricochet off. It's very hard to hit there, but if you can, do it. The other one is this little lip up here. So, if you are facing an enemy M10, and they're hull down, fire a HE round right here. See how they react, because they won't like it. Obviously, it is open roof vehicle, so bear that in mind as well. And obviously very vulnerable to planes, and the cannon breech is also vulnerable to enemy fire. And with the hull armor just in general being quite weak, you've got to be careful. But this is a very solid tank destroyer. It's quite fast as well, with a top speed of 30 miles an hour. Its reverse gear is pretty poor, but its engine is pretty good at 410 horsepower, 30 tons. It'll get where it needs to go. And of course, whilst you do get the M79 shot stock, this is actually not too bad. But when you get that M62, which is very similar to the shell we just looked at, with the 75mm on the M4A4, this gun will absolutely clap. But just bear in mind, this thing has no armor, no roof. It'll suffer against planes. But if you position this thing well, get it hull down, this thing will really help a new player out. And to be brutally honest, I even struggle to deal with hull down M10s, and I even know the weak spot, which is just up there, and obviously the lip that I mentioned. So, bear that in mind if you do face an M10. Then, of course, another vehicle for the lineup is, of course, a light tank. Now, there is a few options. You can up tier a Stuart if you want, but why would you do that when you have access to a Chaffee? The M24 Chaffee, I'm sure most of you know, is one of my favourite tanks, and it's very mobile. It gets around the battlefield very well. Its gun is really good. Its reload rate can be a little bit long, which can put some new players off. On an unskilled crew, I think it's like base 9.5 seconds or something. Let me just double check that. 8.45 on base crew, which is pretty long for a 75mm. You get outloaded by most Russian tanks, pretty much every German tank with the similar caliber. Yeah, that's not good. But obviously, you don't just have to use this thing as a frontline. We, of course, get access to scouting with this, so you can actually scout targets pretty well. You also get smoke grenades and everything to retreat with. You get artillery support, just like in the M4A4. And you do get, obviously, access to a 75mm gun on a light tank, which does have the same shell as the M4A4. So if you do need to get into a combat situation, this thing can do it. And like I said, the mobility is a bit poor for a light tank. There's even been points where I've been outrun by tank destroyers in this thing, especially stocks. I've not long done the Swedish DK one, or the Denmark DK. Yeah, this is a tank that obviously doesn't rely on its armor. As you can tell, it's quite weak. 38 in most turret spots, 25 around the hull, 19 at the rear of the hull. But otherwise, it's something that, you know, it will do the job. It's a very good light tank. But don't expect it to behave like a Sherman. So, in other words, don't expect the reload rate to be super fast. On this relatively unskilled crew, that's a 7.3 second reload rate. On most of my normal Chaffee crews, it's a lot faster, and that extra half a second can make all the difference. So if you are going to put your Chaffee into a crew slot, make sure to work on that weapon reloading. Next up is your AA piece, which this was not a particularly difficult one to choose. And it's the CCKW 353 M45 quad mount. So this is just based on a CCKW cargo truck. It's nothing special. I mean, you have no armor because, well, it's a truck. It's not exactly designed to take a hit. It's designed to carry cargo from A to B most of the time. But then then again, I say someone. The average American got their hands on this thing and decided to mount an M45 quad mount in the back. Now, this is a very well-known anti-aircraft system, and to be brutally honest, it's very good. The quad 50s on a light truck like this, you can park this thing in some spots where only the quad mount is exposed, and obviously the rear of the truck, which doesn't really bother you. But you can park this thing in some spots where only the quad mount is showing and just shred planes. They may take out your gunner, but you've still got another crew member to take the place. Obviously, if they drop a bomb nearby, then that's obviously an issue because you're just going to die to shrapnel. But the M45 quad mount with the AP rounds can actually take out some, and I do mean very some, tanks. Not many, like mainly the Japanese tanks from the side, maybe a light skin vehicle like a Puma. But generally, I would recommend using this thing as an AA piece as it's intended. Obviously, once you get up to the higher ranks and everything, this AA will become vastly outdated. And obviously, in the rank 3 video of China, you'll see that. But obviously, I'm going to be doing Italy rank 2, France rank 2, and Sweden rank 2 first. So just bear that in mind if you are going down that line, is this AA will become rather useless very later on. You can still bring it if you want, because obviously it's a bit better against planes than the later AAs, but the later AAs can actually tank bust. This can't. Not really anyway. But like I said, the mobility on this thing is not too bad. 94 horsepower, 8 tons, a top speed of 40 miles an hour forwards and 5 in reverse. It's not bad at all. It will definitely get it where it needs to go. But just bear in mind, like I said, this thing has 0 armor and will die if someone even sneezes near it. But for a new player, this is a no-brainer to want to give them. Now we move on to the planes, which I'm sure there's going to be some that might criticize my choice, but I'm choosing the Rank 3 Kai-61 Otsu. Now again, I'm having to sort of put in Rank 3s for your CAS, because they're only, like, they're the better ones, let's put it that way. So what I mean by that, if I quickly go to the Rank 2 of China for aircraft, there isn't really anything that goes up to 3.7 in the Rank 2 area. There's the I-16, but this thing is fragile, and the 20mm guns are very poor for ground attack. There is the P-40, which, if you wanted to put the P-40 here, I wouldn't argue with it, but I wouldn't advise it, is my personal suggestion. If you haven't got the Kai-61 yet, it will do, but just bear that in mind. And obviously, as you'll see when we get to the Mosquito, the exact same problem exists, only worse, but we'll get to the Mosquito in a minute. The Kai-61 is one of my favourite planes. It carries 2 250kg bombs, 4 12.7 Ho-103 machine guns, which are incredibly overpowered right now. It does have a little bit of armour protection, but, well, this thing can't tank a hit worth a toffee. And, of course, fuel tanks, which will burn the moment you look at them funny. But the bombs are quite forgiving, with 117.9 kilograms of TNT equivalent. The air targets belt, which, as you can see there, is absolutely ridiculous. 3 HE rounds in a 12.7 belt, which is just crazy. If you go for the tracers, you do have a little bit more penetration. Well, more consistent penetration is what I mean, because it's pretty much all AP. So if you are going for ground attack, this might be your belt of choice. If you want a good mix in between, though, the Universal has 2 HEF rounds. Now, obviously, they are quite weak HEF rounds, but when you're firing hundreds of rounds at a person, tends to do the job. But obviously, this thing's very good in its anti-cast role. Its engine is a little bit weak, but it can make up for that. And of course, it's a very good dogfight. It will out-dogfight pretty much anything you come across. So, unless it's an A6M0 or a very good Spitfire pilot, this thing will beat them most of the time. And then, of course, we come to the attack aircraft / bomber of the choice. And I'm giving the Mosquito because the Mosquito has speed behind it. Its armament is alright. Obviously, the 20mm can take out tanks from above. The bomb loads are a little bit weak. So I was a bit undecided on what to choose for this. So what I mean by that is when we go to the Hispanos, which is mounted in the lower part here, they are pretty decent for ground attack. At 37mm of penetration, these are pretty good, and you do get some SAP rounds. But personally, it's not the best choice, I don't think. And really, the Hispano gets better once you unlock this modification here. Obviously, the bomb loads are not particularly great. These are quite light bombs, but a lot of the time, the Mosquito is using its speed anyway. Dropping its small bombs, taking out a couple of tanks, using the cannons to take out tanks, and maybe engaging some planes. There is the option for rockets, but I don't advise that. The rockets are pretty poor. Well, they're not poor, it's just they're really hard to aim for a new player. If you do want to change this for something a little bit more easier, accessible, and also forgiving in terms of bombing accuracy, there is the Dumpster Burn 3A. That is a very good reason we call it that. The A model has basically no coverage with its tail gun, nor down here. The front turret's fine, but this top turret and the lower turret are piss poor, let's put it that way. Now, its bomb load, as you'll see, these are Russian bombs, which naturally that means they're 5 times better than every other nation. That's a joke, by the way. We get an access to 1,000 kilogram Fab 1000s and 2 500 kilogram Fab 500s. Now, of course, if you are just coming into bomb and you are just dropping bombs on ground targets, this is arguably better than the Mosquito, and I never thought I'd say that in my life, but well, that's what happens, unfortunately. This is a aircraft that I would say for a newer player is more forgiving for ground attack, because you can stay at high altitude, drop your big bombs. It's just getting those bombs unlocked is quite a chore, because as you can see, it's a rank 3 upgrade for the 500s and a rank 4 for the 1000. This plane is very painful to play in ARB. The only other aircraft I would probably suggest is the P1Y1. This has speed behind it, just like the Mosquito. It's not as fast as the Mosquito, but the fact is, it does carry a couple of bombs, which are pretty okay. There is also an armor-piercing 800kg bomb, and there's also a standard 800kg bomb, and this bomb is very good for its BR. Of course, the main reason why I'm saying that this plane is pretty alright is that rear mounted 20mm. If you hit a plane with it, it generally dies, so it can be quite forgiving. And obviously the speed does help it. But generally, the Ginga is only good as a sort of like a get in fast, drop your 800, get out. Because like most Japanese planes, this thing can't take a hit. And the front mounted gun has very limited traverse. There's no pilot controlled guns. And this 20mm at the back also has very limited traverse. But like I said, there's not really many options. And I figured for a new player, this would probably be the better pick. If you think you have a better choice, obviously without it being a premium, let me know in the comments what you think. Because, yeah, I struggled with this one. But, like I said, rank 2 only really has the A29. And, like, the A29's good, but the bomb load is a bit lacking. And as I said, the Dumpster Burn is very good at bombing. But that's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. It can't defend itself. It can't outrun anything. So yeah. If you're obviously playing Rank 2 China, try experimenting with each individual vehicle. And let me know what you think as to how it goes, that is. But anyway, I'm going to leave you all to it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this overview of the Rank 2 Chinese lineup. Obviously next will be Italy, which will probably be around the same BR, 3.7ish. But obviously just bear in mind that, again, no premiums in these videos because that's the whole idea. Let me know what you think of the lineup selection in the comments below, and I'll catch you all next time.